Welcome back to our channel where we provide updates and undisclosed narratives on Catherine, Princess of Wales, and her royal family. We provide you with the exciting news, Buckingham confirms, devastating news about Sarah Ferguson's future shock. Everyone in the sacred but increasingly unstable realm of the British monarchy, a modest but huge choice, has sent shockwaves through the Windsor family, leading to a moment of deep emotion for one of its strongest members. Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York, has had a public life full of ups and downs. King Charles III's last unyielding move reportedly brought her to tears. It wasn't a public announcement or a big ceremony. It was a behind-the-scenes move that was so important that it changed the royal family's boundaries. The Duchess herself previously spoke about how hard it is to be in the public spotlight. She said, "My mistakes have been put on the public stage. Other people's mistakes aren't. Good news doesn't sell papers." Her words now seem eerily prescient as the latest chapter in her tumultuous royal story unfolds not as good news, but as a complex and painful resolution to a long, festering problem, the presence of her ex-husband, Prince Andrew, at the heart of the Windsor estate. Royal Lodge, a majestic 30-room estate in the lush serenity of Windsor Great Park, is at the center of this story. For years, it has been more than just a house for the disgraced Duke of York. It has been a bastion of resistance, a real-life symbol of his unwillingness to be wiped from the royal story. But for King Charles, the lodge had become a monument to a scandal that wouldn't go away. It was a continual, uncomfortable reminder of the Jeffrey Epstein link that almost ruined the monarchy's legitimacy. The king's patience ultimately ran out because of his brother's stubbornness and the stress of a crown that was becoming more contemporary. What happened next was not an act of forgiveness between brothers, but a cold, planned effort to keep everything under control. The goal was simple: stop the noise, bury the headlines, and do whatever it took to secure the institution's destiny. The transaction that is said to have happened is huge, a promise of perpetual stillness in return for a safe, albeit less bright future. But the emotional toll of this royal denouement, especially on the Duchess of York, shows how much it costs to keep a crown. Why did this choice make Sarah Ferguson, the perpetual survivor, so upset? What does this secret agreement say about the House of Windsor's new, harsh age under King Charles III? The Royal Lodge and the lingering scandal, the Fortress of Defiance. To really grasp how bad things are right now, you need to know what Royal Lodge means. The large Grade II listed palace is not just valuable real estate, but it also has a long history with royalty. It used to be the Queen Mother's home in Windsor until she died in 2002. The next year, Prince Andrew rented it. The conditions were quite good, a 75-year lease for a one-time payment of just $1 million, with the prince responsible for the expensive and time-consuming care. Getting this house was a big win for Andrew. It made him a senior royal and gave him a splendid setting for his family life with his daughters Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie. Even after he divorced Sarah Ferguson in 1996, the Duchess stayed at the lodge, making for a strange and unusual family unit that confused the public but gave them a secure home. Royal Lodge was their safe haven, far from the prying eyes of the paparazzi and the harsh criticism of the newspapers. But as Prince Andrew's public life fell apart, the lodge's grandeur became a problem. His connection to the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein and the terrible 2019 BBC Newsnight interview that followed caused him to stop doing royal responsibilities altogether. He lost his military connections, royal patronages, and most humiliatingly, the right to use the title His Royal Highness. The incident ended with a multi-million-pound out-of-court settlement with Virginia Giuffre, the woman who accused him. This payment sparked unpleasant concerns about the Duke's unclear finances. Andrew held on to Royal Lodge through it all. The house became his final place of importance as his regal universe dwindled. Leaving it would be the last obvious sign that he was permanently exiled. "I'm still here," was a statement of defiance yelled from within its old brick walls. This warning was too much for King Charles to take. He became king in 2022, inheriting a kingdom that was in danger of going out of business. People were losing faith in the organization, which was facing allegations of being out of touch, wasteful, and morally corrupt. Charles wanted a slimmed-down monarchy that was more efficient, responsible, and contemporary, and that would work in the 21st century. Prince Andrew, who lived in a 30-room palace in the middle of the Crown estate and did nothing for the people, was the perfect example of the issue. Almost away, people started to talk about how unhappy the king was. There were rumors that Charles was thinking about lowering Andrew's yearly budget. This would make it hard for the Duke to fund the estimated $400 a year maintenance of Royal Lodge. The king's plan was clear. If Andrew didn't want to go, he would be forced to do so by losing money. Reports say that the smaller, freshly restored Frogmore Cottage, which Prince Harry and Meghan Markle had left, was offered as an option. Andrew said no right away. For him, downsizing wasn't a good idea. It was a public degradation and the last nail in the coffin of his royal character. The standoff has started. A king's burden. The call for a new royal era. King Charles's desire to fix the Andrew problem was based on more than simply his own anger or a need to save money. It was an issue of the monarchy's existence. Charles recognized that his reign would be evaluated by a different, harsher standard after Queen Elizabeth II's reign, which was adored by everyone. He had to show that the monarchy was worth something, not simply assume it. Two important things made this need even stronger: his own health and the future of his son, Prince William. The king's feeling of urgency became stronger once he was diagnosed with cancer in early 2024. He knew quite well that he didn't have much time to change the destiny of the monarchy. He couldn't and wouldn't leave his kid with the unsolved, poisonous subject of Prince Andrew. The change to King William V had to go as smoothly as possible. People who work in the palace say that the king is very interested in his legacy and keeping power. One high-ranking courtier is said to have said, "The king sees it as his primary duty to hand over the institution in a stronger state than he found it." That means cleaning up the mess and closing up the wounds. The Duke of York is the biggest of those wounds. It is thought that Prince William has the same, if not more extreme views as his father. The Prince of Wales is claimed to think that his uncle can't come back after seeing how the scandal hurt the family's image. William thinks that the monarchy's integrity is very important, and he sees Andrew's prolonged high-profile presence at Windsor as a direct threat to that integrity. Queen Camilla also made things harder. She was a practical and protective force next to Charles for a long time, and others say she was a strong voice calling for decisive action. Camilla knows better than others how fragile a royal image can be, since she has fought for popular acceptance for decades. Sources say that Andrew was more than simply a troublesome brother-in-law to her. He was a problem that wouldn't go away, and a stain on the image of the modern, respectable monarchy that she and Charles had fought so hard to build. It was no longer a question of family peace. It was now an issue of state. The king's plan started to take form as a royal cleaning, a planned purge meant to safeguard the crown at all costs. Every royal home was being looked at, and every cost was being looked at. But Andrew's intransigence at Royal Lodge had become a clear sign of unrestrained privilege. People were becoming more and more angry about what they saw as wastefulness as they dealt with a cost of living issue. Charles understood that something had to change, and he chose his brother to be the first and most obvious test of his new strict rule. The last warning and a brother's fight. The king's patience eventually ran out as the winter rains of early 2024 poured on the old stones of Windsor. Buckingham Palace sent a letter to Royal Lodge. It wasn't just a correspondence between brothers. It was an official letter from the Crown. It was written on thick, cream-colored paper and sealed with deep crimson wax with the royal insignia on it. The message was both simple and horrible. The letter made the environment within Royal Lodge, which was already full of hidden tensions, even more tense. It was put on the same polished desk where Prince Andrew had signed military orders and more recently written his public apologies. The letter's tone was cool, polite, and very clear. A person who knows about the email said it used the words, "His Majesty requests your immediate cooperation." Everyone knew what it really meant. This wasn't a request, it was a demand. Obey or the monarchy will use all of its power to destroy you. There was no warmth, no fraternal love, and no chance to talk. This was the king using his power in the most direct way possible. But Andrew wasn't ready to give up. He thought he had a trump card in the form of the 75-year lease, which was a formal instrument that his mother had signed before she died. He didn't agree. Instead, he asked for a meeting in person. He wanted to talk to Charles like a brother, not as a king. The king didn't want to, but he did. The meeting happened behind closed doors at Clarence House. There were no aides or attorneys there, just two brothers whose relationship had been ruined by years of scandal and distrust. People who were there subsequently said the atmosphere was freezing. Charles didn't waste any time on small talk and started right away. "You will leave Royal Lodge within a year." Andrew's face became tense. He started to defend himself by reminding the king of the legally obligated lease and the millions of dollars he said he had spent on repairs. He said that it was his family's home and the only steady environment his girls had ever known. But Charles didn't change his mind. His speech remained calm and unemotional. "The monarchy can't afford to keep you around any longer, Andrew." At that time, the Duke realized he was not talking to his elder brother Charlie. The King of England was talking to him. The power was complete. But in a moment of anger and desperation, Andrew played his last cruel card. He brought up Charles's own background, including the scandals, controversies, and public criticism that had followed him as Prince of Wales. Andrew is said to have muttered, "You were forgiven." "Why can't I?" There was a profound quiet in the room. Charles looked at his younger brother for a long time, his face showing a combination of sympathy and mild hatred. After that, he delivered the last devastating blow. "Because I learned from mine." The king then rose up and went out of the chamber, leaving Andrew sitting in his chair, gazing at the closed door. The meeting was done. Later that day, when a sad Sarah Ferguson asked him what had occurred, he could only say, "He's made up his mind." That night, for the first time in years, the lights at Royal Lodge appeared to fade with a feeling of finality. The Duchess's gambit, going from survivor to strategic negotiator. The king did something quite surprising the following morning. Prince Andrew's office did not get a call from his private secretary. He contacted Sarah Ferguson right away. Charles was smart enough to see that Andrew was acting out of pride and passion, while the Duchess was a realist. She was the one who made deals, stayed alive, and knew how power really operated behind the scenes. The king's secretary gave a short but powerful message. "His Majesty wants to make an arrangement that is good for everyone." Sarah got it right away. This wasn't a threat. It was a chance for her to name her price. For years, she had been in a bizarre royal limbo, an outsider who was nonetheless always on the inside. In her early years, newspapers made fun of her by calling her the Duchess of Pork. After her divorce and a series of scandals, including a 2010 cash for access sting courtier stopped talking to her, but she always found a way to get back on her feet. She had restored her reputation as a successful children's book author, a TV star, and a supporter of charities. People frequently thought of her family as cold and aloof, but she was the warm, personable, and refreshingly honest face of it. The same organization that had kicked her out was now phoning her to make a deal. She felt a strange, exciting sensation of power since the power dynamic had changed. She wasn't just battling for a home. She was fighting for the last bits of her identity, her safety, and the delicate calm she had worked so hard to build for her family. She lost her platform, her prestige, and her tie to the heart of Windsor when she lost Royal Lodge. She would be just another ex-duchess holding on to a past that was no longer relevant. But Sarah Ferguson never gave up without a fight. She hadn't worried when Andrew showed her the king's first letter. Instead, a buddy reported she calmly poured a drink, leaned back, and stated, "If he wants us gone, we have to make it worth his while." This was her time to shine. She understood that King Charles was afraid of bad press and family problems more than anything else. He couldn't risk a long, nasty eviction fight being covered by the world's news outlets. She used that information as a weapon. Over the years she spent in the royal circle, she saw history happen, the highs and lows of Princess Diana, the ascent of William and Kate, Queen Elizabeth II's private worries, and the whole unvarnished narrative of Andrew's demise. She knew where the dead were buried, and the palace knew she knew. She made a counteroffer via her attorneys that was really bold. She and Andrew would leave Royal Lodge, but only if two things were met. First, they needed two distinct residences that would be privately managed, which would protect them in the future and liberate them from the Crown Estate's control. Second, and most importantly, they wanted a legally enforceable agreement that would keep all information about their money and their departure from Royal Lodge secret both now and in the future. It was a stroke of genius. By demanding confidentiality, she was making the king's wish for quiet a legal requirement. Charles would appear like he was concealing something if he said no. She wasn't simply working out a move. She was making history by selling the king the power he wanted so much. The cost of silence. A deal made after death. The Duchess's counteroffer hit Buckingham Palace like a bomb. The king was shocked by the advice of his more hawkish aides. One person is claimed to have stated, "You can't reward defiance with a payoff." It sets a bad example. Reports say that Queen Camilla was quite angry because she thought the king was being too kind. In a private chat, she is claimed to have snapped, "We are not paying them to behave." She was clear Andrew had done this to himself and should take the punishment without a multi-million-pound bribe. But Charles was in a bind. He understood why Camilla felt the way she did, but he also knew that a public family fight might be dangerous. It would seem cruel and nasty to throw his brother and the Duchess, who had lately gained a lot of public sympathy after being diagnosed with cancer, out into the street. His job as king was putting his compassion to the test. The decision was made by the king after he had spent the night pacing restlessly around the corridors of Clarence House. It was his personal assistant who answered the phone, adding, "Get the papers ready," he said in a low voice for emphasis. "But I want a clause. This is a clause for life." Those who were close to the meetings and palace rumors provided us with the information that we used to put together the final pact, which is a terrifying document of royal incarceration. Being silent is a contract, if you will, in a sense. Should Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson decide to move out of their lease on Royal Lodge and into two smaller residences, they will be subject to a very stringent gag order that requires them to remain silent. Unlike other non-disclosure agreements, this one is not typical. They claim that it prevents them from ever discussing the royal family, their wealth, the reasons they left the lodge, or any other aspect of their experiences while they were a part of the organization, whether in public or in private. Neither the Duchess nor the Duke will ever again engage in the practice of writing tell-all books, nor will they ever again engage in poor television interviews or even off-the-record briefings with friendly journalists. Now the Crown is the owner of their story, their memories, and the facts that they have. The notion that the contract would continue longer than their life is the most frightening of all the rumors. A posthumous pact of silence stipulates that their personal notebooks, letters, and any unfinished memoirs may never be published without the agreement of the monarch who is now in power. In an attempt to eradicate a negative aspect of royal history before it can ever be documented in an accurate manner, there is a silence that is intended to last for all of eternity. It was speculated that Charles would be providing Andrew and Sarah with separate residences and continue to provide financial assistance for them. Charles believed that the price was worth it. The value of a legally enforceable guarantee of quiet was far more than the value of an empty house. At that moment, the Andrew narrative had come to an end, forever and for all. A look at what occurred. Following the Duchess's tears. As soon as Sarah Ferguson signed the papers and the sale was finalized, it is said that she experienced the full emotional weight of the event. A friend who was quite close to the Duchess said that when they discovered her, she was deeply contemplating something. Her typically powerful smile had disappeared, and her eyes were filled with grief. These tears were not shed because she had been defeated. Rather, they were shed because she was experiencing a wide range of emotions all at once. It was with a heavy heart that she parted ways with the only true home she had known for more than 2 years. It was in this house that she had brought up her daughters and developed a strange peace with their father after their divorce. It felt as if she had lost a leg when she lost Royal Lodge, since it was the place where she had spent the years of her life that were happier and more stable. The taste of a victory that had been earned through arduous effort was also there. She had taken a stand against the monarch and ensured that her family would have a future for themselves. Even though she had been a pawn for a considerable amount of time, she had shown that she was a powerful participant in a game. To be successful, however, she had to give up her voice. For a woman who had built her profession on being truthful and having a strong personality, the vow of enforced silence was comparable to being exiled from the world. Eventually, there were tears of happiness shed. That battle that never came to a conclusion was finally over. No longer did they need to be concerned about money, the possibility of being thrown out with nothing, or the uncertainty of what would occur next. It was safe for her and her children. The horrible awareness of all that had been lost, including status, proximity to the center of power, and a place in the official royal story, came to light while they were in that space of protection. Despite the fact that she had safeguarded her family, she had to give up their history in order to complete the task. The image of the Duchess weeping is a poignant and emotional gesture that stands in stark contrast to the cold and calculated actions of the monarchy. The fact that these people are grappling with sadness and pride, as well as the awful sacrifices they have to make in order to remain alive behind the golden walls and against the old norms, is shown by this. For King Charles, the treaty signifies the conclusion of a difficult chapter and a significant step toward his objective of making the crown more powerful for the generation that would come after him. His actions have shown a level of ruthlessness that many people did not believe he had, as he has prioritized the well-being of the organization above the sentiments of his family. The tranquil corridors of Windsor, however, continue to be shrouded in a mystery. Through the act of burying one, did the king inadvertently generate yet another controversy? The fact that there is a royal recompense, a contract to purchase peace, demonstrates concern. This anxiety manifests itself as a dread of being discovered and a worry about what else could expose itself. Additionally, throughout the lengthy and eventful history of the House of Windsor, secrets have had a propensity to resurface and become public knowledge. There have already been speculations flying around that the Duchess, who is known for always planning ahead, could have a backup plan. All of the royal accounting has been completed, the deal has been finalized, and the silence has been purchased. You can't help but get the impression that this is not the end of the never-ending drama that is the British royal family. As the moving trucks arrive at the beautiful entrance of Royal Lodge, you can't help but feel that the present is not the finish, but rather the beginning of a new, more tranquil, and maybe more dangerous chapter. Thank you for watching the video. Please let us know your thoughts, and goodbye for now.